Hi everyone, and welcome to the Capricorn Weekly Illumination Reading. This is I Am Illuminated Tarot and Meaning-Based Spiritual Coaching Services. I am Lauren. Hi and welcome. So this is a slightly different format than my previous videos, and seeing that I am a new mother, so my schedule has changed, and I am trying to condense these readings so I can produce more of them but still get across the same messages as before with my slightly longer readings. I will actually be completing a more extensive or comprehensive spiritual purpose illumination reading later on in the month for each sign, so I hope you check that out as well. So this reading here specifically is meant to illuminate some part of your unique internal authentic self that needs some awareness brought to it through engaging with the core principles of curiosity, courage, and contemplation, which is what I call the Triad of Engagement, to allow you to become aware of that part of yourself that needs to connect with your external environment and therein connecting to your spiritual purpose. All right, so Capricorn, we are going to pull a Power of Surrender card here, which is going to help us tap into the principle of curiosity. And curiosity is where we are going to go back in time to bring ourselves into alignment with a childlike and innocent, naive, but excited perception of the world around us, and tap into that awe and wonder again that we hold towards not only ourselves but to our external environment. And this is going to help us break through those negative thought patterns that we create for ourselves as we move from childhood into adulthood. All those negative patterns where we tell ourselves that things can't change or we can't change, and we're instead going to step into that place of we are curious about what the world holds for us again. We're curious about what our potential is meant for, the greater potential of ourselves in our external environment, where we can be of service to the greater collective human experience, and what we don't know about ourselves, what we still have yet to learn. We are also going to build in a question around the message on the card that comes out to help bring what is a very general message here into one that is individually tailored for you, because you are going to be asking yourself this question, and because only you can answer it, it's the message then that comes through for you through the answering of that question that will basically be the real gem out of this reading. Okay. Interesting. So we have surrender to the wisdom of your body. And I think it was, I'm trying to see who else got this. I think it was Pisces who got this too. So for some of you, for anybody who might be maybe a Pisces in your chart, or you haven't a Pisces in your life, you might also want to check out that reading, just because, again, they had the same message. It says, listen to your body's messages about a person or situation. If you feel physically drained or uncomfortable, be cautious. If you are energized and happy, move forward. So there's an element here about trusting your intuition, but trusting it through the awareness of your physical being. We can at times in our lives go through a period where we kind of lose touch with the physical side to our experience. We can get really stuck in our heads, we can get stuck in our emotions, we can be focused on, spiritual growth, and sometimes we lose sight of just how much our physical experience is also of equal value to those other sides to our experience, and that we're meant to utilize our physical being to actually kind of be that part of ourselves that works in the tangible reality, that we get to touch and feel and use our bodies as a compass as to what feels good. Now we can lose sight of that, and that's when sometimes we can actually allow ourselves to get to a place where we're either running kind of on empty, or we're in a state of perpetual anxiety because we are not in awareness of what is causing us to feel that way, whether it's being overworked, whether it is ingesting kind of negative things, like I would say, and I do use the word toxic because there are certain things to each one of us that maybe not to somebody else, but to us can be toxic. And that can be listening to negative music or watching negative things. There's that whole big push, I mean, it was many years ago, but it's still ongoing today, to get people to not, or to get children to play less video games, because if you watch too many violent or gory video games, the kids can become desensitized. And we as adults can also become desensitized to the point where if we're always watching, let's say, negative news cycles, or always watching negative, let's say, television programming, where it's only showing the world in some way, some perception, we can actually poison ourselves to where we begin to only see and hear and perceive life in that, through the lens of those negative things. And we can become almost desensitized to the beauty of life. And I think, Capricorn, that's what you're being asked this week to be curious about, to tap back into your physical being and to see what is toxic in your life. What are you ingesting? Either physically ingesting, meaning what are you eating and drinking, even down to if you're taking, supplements or pills and things like that. What are you eating and drinking, or bringing in on a different level into your physical being? What are you watching? What are you listening to? And seeing how that's actually feeling in your body. What is causing you to feel in this perpetual state of either anxiety, or that might make you feel like, here, physically drained or uncomfortable? Because that's where your body is telling you, for you specifically as an individual, this is not right. You're not meant to, the divine does not want you to live in a state of perpetual anxiety or upset or fear. The goal is that if each one of us can transcend those by staying in flow with our feelings, being aware of ourselves, and taking conscious action to move towards what actually makes us feel emotionally fulfilled or at peace, those are the areas that we then can grow and foster more and more and more of. But it's when we stay on these lower, and people call it vibrational patterns. I choose to see it that way because I do believe in sound healing, and that there is a vibrational quality to our entire experience in reality. But you don't have to look at it that way. You can look at it simply as, when we choose to stay kind of in the status quo, in the reality of, well, this is just how everything is, and everything is negative, or everything makes me feel ugh, or everything makes me feel out of control. Well, that's when we prevent ourselves from actually continuing to grow, from being able to step into that place where we can see the beauty in life. And the more that we see the beauty in life, and we feel in flow, and we feel at peace, that's where we get to, at the best, connect with our spiritual purpose, because we are then stepping into alignment with what we're meant to be able to become of service to the greater collective experience. When we're just sitting back and constantly feeling in this negative state, we are not as effective. We can't communicate effectively. In fact, oftentimes we communicate negatively, and that can push people away, and we don't even realize it. We can, again, color our world so that what we see is negative, and it prevents us from enjoying in the moment the beauty of all that we have around us. And it can also change even our emotional and spiritual perspectives to where we start to lose hope, or where we don't feel in alignment that there is something greater and better that connects all of us. And this is where we can lose touch with meaning, and we can kind of just feel like we're drifting, or feel like we're kind of swimming up against the current. And that's not what we're meant to do. Yes, there are times when we have to take courageous action and do the necessary, maybe hard tasks. And no, we are not all meant to live in, peace and fairyland, meaning we do live on earth, and this is meant to, through hardship and suffering, meant to elevate us, to unlock parts of ourselves that end up becoming heroic, the heroic qualities in ourselves, so that we can really rise to the occasion to experience again that spiritual purpose. But that only happens when we rise up to meet challenges. But there's a difference between rising up to meet a challenge and, maybe this challenge doesn't even have to be something dramatic. It could be something as simple as rising up to meet the challenge of a creative goal, or rising up to the challenge of being a parent. But that shouldn't make you feel upset or anxious or fearful. It should instead be illuminating to you, and it should be working with you to trying to use my words here. Sorry guys, Mercury retrograde I feel like is really affecting me. I also feel like your energy is really intense. It's almost like causing me to have a headache. So I apologize. You guys might actually feel that way. You might feel like you just have so much going on. And I'm sorry if you do feel that way. But this is, I think, what Spirit's trying to connect you with here, is to realize that when you feel that way in your body, something is wrong. Now, the reverse is the things that make you feel energized and happy. That's what you also need to focus on, is to be able to see the difference between the two. So this week, that question to ask yourself is, what is making me feel drained? What am I ingesting, either through my mouth, through my eyes, through my ears? What am I ingesting that is not healthy for me, that is toxic, that's not allowing me to feel and flow with my life, to see the beauty of life specifically, and to feel at peace with the actions I'm taking, and to feel at peace with the direction my life is going as well. All right, now we are going to pull a animal oracle card here for the principle of courage. And this is where we get to really tap into the seat of our own empowerment, where we get a chance to have the courage to take conscious action. And what does that mean? That means that we start to become aware of each and every action that we take throughout the day, and we bring ourselves into the picture, meaning we don't just make off-the-cuff decisions. We don't just automatically go through the same motions every day without awareness. We instead, no matter how small that action is, we stop in that moment to take one small courageous act, which is, what feels right for me to do? What is within my own best interest? Now, obviously, we do not live on an island. So yes, there are going to be times when you can't just act out of pure selfishness. But there is a part to our experience that is selfish, that we each only have our own experience to live. We only have our life to live, and only we can live it. And we do ourselves a disservice when we are not aware of the actions we take, when we are constantly either putting that decision into another's hands to tell us how to act, which is actually removing your own personal freedom, and which in doing so can prevent you from actually being able to realize your spiritual purpose. Or this is when, instead of the reverse, you simply just become disengaged, and you're not aware that you have the beautiful power to control the actions that you take, and that the more that you stay engaged with yourself in each action you choose to take, and making sure that that action is in alignment with yourself, that's how you become more and more aligned with your spiritual purpose and just feeling like you're living you into life, not living somebody else into life. Because again, you can only live your life. So courage, it's hard. It's hard to take action sometimes on our own behalf because it might not seem like it's acceptable to others, or it might rock the boat a little bit, or it might just be scary. It might just be the courage to ask your manager for a raise because you haven't had one in 2 years and you feel that it's, that you've worked hard and that it should be something to be discussed. Or you feel like, this can take all taking action always involves courage in general. Because when you think about it, every action we take, even just getting out of bed in the morning, that takes courage. It takes courage for us to tap into faith that our lives are worth living, that there's going to be something out there to experience that is going to be great. Otherwise, we would just sit in bed all day long and not interact with life. So again, there's always this element of courage with every decision that we make, including to get up out of bed every morning and to then take action from that step forward. Do we get ready? Do we take that shower and blow dry our hair and put on clothes that make us feel good? And do we go to the gym, or do we just stay at work an extra hour, or do we eat this for dinner? All those little decisions end up boiling down and creating your reality. And so the reality you want to create is one that involves you, that comes from you. And we do that through being conscious of the actions we take. So you have 2 here. So we have Dragonfly Spirit, number 22, Truth Transcends Illusion. So Taurus got this one as well, which is interesting. You guys might be dealing with a Taurus. And we have Mouse Spirit, Tend to the Small Things, which is number 40, breaking down to a 4. And it's very interesting that both of these break down to number 4, but in 2 different ways. So number 22 is an actual master number in numerology, which breaks down, or which is the master number of the spiritual builder. It's a beautiful number. And then the number 4 is building foundations through hard work. And so there's this quality here of perhaps building a new foundation. And when I see Mouse Spirit, tend to the small things. This is almost like the devil's in the details kind of card. It's interesting because Capricorn, your major arcana card in the tarot is the devil. And I know everybody's like, cringe. But the devil has a purpose in the tarot. It's actually a very important card. And it's not about like the devil that we tend to personify as this, demon or something like that. The devil card in the tarot signifies where we hold ourselves back, what we chain ourselves to, not what, and where we then try to push that off as, well, something in the external is holding us back. And in reality, it's us that put the chains on ourselves. And that's the message behind that card, is that there's this quality to it of you realizing where you've been limiting yourself, not where the external has been limiting you. So there's this quality here with, truth transcends illusion and tend to the small things, that you're being asked to evaluate your eyes, or your life through the eyes of spirit, to see through the illusion, get to the truth of your current experience. And that's going to come forward when you're first curious as to what's not making you feel great. And then when you take a look at tend to the small things, there's this quality here, kind of like what I was picking up on earlier, of the devil's in the details. So when we think about the devil, like I was just describing, as to what's holding you back from experiencing the beauty of life fully, is in the small things that you do on a day-to-day basis. It's all those small actions So this is that week to be aware of all of the actions you're taking and choosing to be curious as to where each one of these actions is, how it's making you feel on a physical level. Meaning, each day you sit down to watch TV, what are you watching? What are you ingesting? When you sit down to eat, what are you eating? When you listen to music or even people, this is the other thing. You could be the one that's getting in the middle of a toxic gossip situation with friends or with coworkers, and that just ingesting and being around that, you might not even be participating in it. You might just be around it, and that alone is toxic and changing how you perceive your work environment or your social setting. So there's this quality here of getting down to the devil's in the details. Well, it's your limitation. You're limiting yourself and your personal experience through what you are currently ingesting, and you need to be aware of that and start making these little tiny changes. This is not a week to make massive changes. This isn't like, okay, something my work doesn't feel right, I'm going to quit my job. This is all those small things that have snowballed into perhaps making you feel like you are perpetually in a place of anxiety, or that you are not emotionally connecting to the experience of beauty and awe and wonder and peace. If those feelings are not resonating with you right now, it's because there's all these little things that need to be shifted. And so this week it's all about working with spirit to build a new foundation for the things that you ingest. Meaning, if you are watching, let's say, negative things on TV, and you notice that you're starting to feel that level of anxiety, or you're feeling upset, or you're starting to in your mind, if not verbally, state things like, there is no hope, this will never change, this is awful, people are awful, all people like this are awful. That's when you need to stop. Take a look at what you're watching and turn it off and make that change. It's kind of, it's funny, I was talking with one of my friends about just, some of the sad things in life when, people produce great works of creativity, but yet they themselves as a person are deeply troubled. And it's hard to separate the person from their wonderful creative works. And one of the people that we were talking about was Michael Jackson, the musician. And, again, very troubled individual, but his music was so different. And he, again, was an icon because what he did creatively was, revolutionary at the time. And it made me just think right now as to one of his songs that came through, which was that song which the lyrics are "Make That Change," the man in the mirror, where you're, basically it boils down to that saying of, be the change you want to see in the world. But there is this quality of our reality is a mirror of ourselves and our beliefs and our perception. And we can courageously change our perception. We get that chance to be able to see the world one way or see it another way. And in reality, that's the one area where we are ultimately free. There's nobody that can change our perception. We can willingly allow outside influences to, temper or color our perception. But ultimately, even if we were stuck in a dungeon, we can alter our perception of that experience to still be beneficial in some way to ourselves. We can assign meaning in some aspect to the suffering that we're enduring in that moment. And that's actually where I bring in logotherapy into my spiritual coaching. And logotherapy was started by a man, Viktor E. Frankl, who survived being in Auschwitz, being in a Nazi concentration camp, in being able to find meaning in that suffering and realizing our ultimate freedom is within ourselves. That's where we become unchained. That no matter how much we are chained and our external environment can seem hopeless, inside we can still be free. We are still free to perceive ourselves and our experience, and we can still assign meaning to our suffering. So even if you think that that there are certain elements in your experience that are negative or sad or even upsetting, you can change your perception of them to create meaning in your experience of them. So maybe you are experiencing suffering in some aspect or sadness around some element of our reality or your reality, but you can step into changing that, being the change through altering yourself. You get to be the man in the mirror, because ultimately that is the life that we experience. Your perception is just yourself mirrored. So take courageous action to make the small changes this week. And for some of you, I do feel like some of you might be dealing with a Taurus to maybe work with them to make those small changes. Or maybe you guys can both help each other out. Maybe you guys are in the same boat a little bit. All right, so now we are going to pull a final card for the principle of contemplation. And contemplation is where we get to reflect on the consequences of where we took action to see what happened. This is where we get to continually self-educate through direct experience with our external environment. And it's also where we get a chance to start the whole Triad of Engagement over again. We get to contemplate on our actions, we see what we reflect and see what the results were, and then we become curious as to, okay, where can I either keep this going, or where do I need to change my actions because my consequence was not exactly what I was expecting. And this prevents us from entering into a state of stagnation, and it keeps us fully engaged with our decision-making process and keeping us responsible to our actions and the consequences of them. All right, let's see. What does Capricorn need to know? Oh, beautiful. I can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was Cancer, Libra, someone else got this card. It's funny, all the cards that have come out have all been cards that have come out for other signs. So we have Come to the Edge, and it's number 36, breaking down to a 9. And 9 is a culmination of a cycle. It's bringing forward lessons learned from that cycle as you move into the next cycle. And so this card kind of signifies that as well. They're coming to the edge to step off into the next cycle. So there's this, and I love to hear, if you guys can see it, that these it looks almost like rose petals, but they're hearts. And there's this quality here of realizing that love surrounds all of us. Love is the connective, I like to call it the connective fascia, the tissue, the energy force that connects everything in this universe, in our experience. And there's this element here of, I think, you guys being asked by Spirit to step back into that place by realizing that it's time to make a move, that there's an ending of a cycle that's coming through. When we're thinking about reflection, there's this quality here of coming to the edge, but realizing that you're protected at the same time, realizing that it's almost like kind of clearing the energy, like where this card also, and it's coming through very strongly, reminds me of the Fool card in the tarot. The Fool card is a card that denotes, again, starting kind of the cycle over again, that you are starting fresh. The picture on the original Rider-Waite tarot is a man holding kind of, like one of those old, like, I want to say hobo. I know that's not politically correct, but you know, it's like a little bag on a stick where it's like he's gotten rid of all of his stuff and he just has his few belongings in this little bag, and he is ready to take a blind step off a cliff, but he is happy and looking upward as he's doing it because he has full faith that he will be fully protected by spirit, and that this next phase, this next chapter where he's leaping off this cliff is meant for him. And so he will be protected in that, and that everything he has in that knapsack is going to be enough for him. So there's this quality here of releasing, and that's kind of what I'm seeing in this image, is releasing everything that has been to this point and looking at it with fresh eyes. You're being asked by Spirit to step into the beauty, to remember what that feels like, the beauty and the awe and the wonder around life again, and to remove this kind of negative physical experience that you've been with for a while. So releasing the baggage with love, knowing that you're supported, and that it's time to go emotionally light into the next chapter. So this week is about making those small shifts, bringing awareness to yourself, physical being, because that's really what's going to tell you where these small shifts need to be made. And as you do that, it's time to release everything that you've been experiencing up to this point that's felt emotionally heavy, or that's been coloring your perception or your ability to perceive the world with beauty, awe, and wonder through the eyes, almost as a child. It's almost like kind of wiping the slate clean and going back to your original self. That you might have experienced hurt and frustration and pain, as we all do, but going back to realize meaning in that suffering, and that in releasing that, you can move forward kind of with this fresh perspective of the abundance that you have in your life, and where in just making these few key changes, the decisions to make those changes, that you're going to radically start to change your perception of your life experience. And that's how you're going to get your spiritual purpose back in your sights. All right, Capricorn, I hope this has been a good reading. I look forward to completing your spiritual purpose connection reading later on in the month. Again, that one's going to be more of a comprehensive reading, and that will involve tarot cards as well. If you'd like to book a one-on-one coaching session or a personal tarot reading, my link to the website is in the description box below. I appreciate all of your likes and subscribes, very much so. It means so much to me at this point. But obviously, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, there's no need. Just being able to share this with you guys and for you to have watched this video means the world to me. All right, bye, Capricorn.